Welcome to another Numismatic Notes with Benjamin. It is 10 degrees outside on February 18th, and I decided to take a break from my studies to show you a hoard of banknotes that I recently acquired that really increased my position in Chinese paper currency. So I'm very pleased to share them with you. They're not all crisp uncirculated. In fact, I guarantee you that 99% aren't. Some of them are somewhat damaged and show show that they have been well used. Some of them have been graffitied by soldiers and other civilians back in the 40s and 30s and 20s who went to China and came back and wrote on the notes to tell us that these are Chinese notes, just in case we wouldn't really know. And some of them are letters to family, and some of them are just torn. Some of them are stained and soiled. Some of them have splits in the margins, and some of them just have tears. But what they all have, too, is character, and they all have a beauty that should not be disregarded, even if they are not crisp and pristine. They will all serve as placeholders in my collection until I can find something nicer, and if I never do, I'm glad I have these notes here. I paid a decent amount of money for these. Based on the quantity, I think I got a good deal, and I think the person that sold them to me got a good deal as well. Without any further ado, let me start sharing with you my hoard of Chinese banknotes. I'm going to be very quick and mainly just do some showing, but I'll call out some things as, you know, they're important. This particular note here is, holy cow, I don't know what it is. I think it's 100 yen. It's 100 yuan, and it's from 1943. And here we have the back of it. Whenever I do a video that shows what these notes are, or like, you know, whenever I do a video that shows a deep dive into a single note, then I will definitely give you more information as to what's on these notes. Here's another 100 yen. This one's from 1943 as well. The other one had a serial number. These just have plate letters. You'll notice, like on Korean money, that they had the red bank seals. And you'll see that again here on this 5,000 yen. Red seals, plate notes. Most of these notes from this time period show Sun Yat-sen. This is one of the notes I told you about that had writing on it. Somebody wrote on this the name of the person I guess they gave it to, or the name of the person that picked it up. What they didn't write was why they what they didn't write on the note was why they wrote on the note. I always thought this little tiny one fin from 1938 reminded me of, strangely enough, a Sudanese bridge banknote from the other side of the world. It's kind of a nice little note. Here we go, Confucius note. I looked to see if it was the note where it's an obscene gesture that they made to make fun of Japan, but I don't think it is. This is a 1 yuan from 1941, and somebody helpfully wrote China along the top of it, just in case we wouldn't know what country it is. There was a time in my youth where that would have annoyed me, but now it just makes me laugh. And even though there's stains on these notes, you can sometimes see that the galoshes, the lathe work, hides them, or, you know, attracts your attention elsewhere. This is a 10 yen from 1945. They really knew how to do balanced and busy at the same time back in the day. Here's a 5 yuan, and it is from 1937, I believe. Yep. Right there it says Chunga something Chungukin mean, and then it says 2106 year, so that's 26, and you have to add 1911, and then you will get 1937. So add 11 to the Chinese year on a note, and that actually gives you the Western year. But I like how it's busy and balanced, clean. There you go. In the same series, here's a 10 yuan from 1937. Different color, but same format. I like the pink and the green, and I recently found that color combination on a Saudi Arabian banknote. So, boom, that's pretty interesting. Now, I think it's weird that they have serial numbers overprinting the design on the front and the back, but sometimes in this time period they did that. And sometimes they didn't, and sometimes they had them only on the front, and sometimes they only had them on the back. So it's a fun country to collect by variety. Next note is a 5 from 1940. Look at the blues on that note. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Sorry about that reflection on there. I just think it's absolutely lovely. This is an American banknote product, and you can see the Temple of Heaven over there in the, from the Forbidden City. That's a place I'd like to go sometime. Moving to red on this 10 yen, or 10 yuan of 1940. And it's also from the banknote. Same series as the previous note. Very nice. And here's another 10 yen. And I think the only difference between this one and the previous one was we have the serial numbers here, but we also have them added to the back of the note. You remember how I told you sometimes you can get a whole lot of different varieties on these banknotes? I think that's kind of fun. This is an unusually denominated note from that same series. It's kind of a stained and dirty note. I don't know if it's because this note wasn't used often or if it was stored because, it's not a common denomination. This is a 25 yuan from 1940. Same series. I love the galoshes on this note. And then you can see the back of it. It has coloring that would make you think it was a United States banknote. And sure enough, it's from the American Banknote Company. Moving right along, a popular vignette on world banknotes. This 5 yuan from 1927 shows a train. A beautiful train. That vignette alone just makes this note have character, even though it's missing part of its margins because the paper is so decayed. And when you turn it over and check it, part of the corner's missing, but somebody's written their name in Chinese down the side there. But it's a lovely note. And it's also overprinted Tsingtao. And some of you may recognize that as a beer. And you should, because Tsingtao was the German Hong Kong that they had on the mainland, and they introduced a beer culture. And they still make a beer called Tsingtao in China to this day. Here is a 5 yuan from 1935. And it's as beautifully engraved, I think, as that previous train. And you see junks on this side. And, of course, I've always loved the treatment of clouds and water on these banknotes. And on this side, we have another scene as well. And the note has been well circulated, so it is what it is. And sometimes I think, you know what? People ought to just have some circulated banknotes in their collection just for the stories they might be able to be inspired to tell. This is a 10 yuan from 1935. And I think it's the same. Yeah, it's the Communications Bank of China. And then you can see over here all the lathe work. And then you see over here the bank seals. And then there's I believe the power pylons or electricity pylons. We have those here in Oklahoma, and they look like dress forms to me, so I always imagine that they were giants walking across the landscape here in Oklahoma. I actually got made fun of quite a bit as a child by adults who thought I was stupid and easily entertained, but you know what? Well, they're from Oklahoma, and while I am too, I just don't have time for adults being jackasses, so I'm just going to say that and move on. Okay, here is a 5 yen from 1941, and this is a train, just like the other one. Probably a similar vignette because it's, I believe, the same company, American Banknote Company. This back has an engraving of the bank building, though. And you may have heard me say yuan, and you may have heard me say yen, and I might even accidentally say one from time to time. They're all the same Chinese character, and I'm just pronouncing it like the Chinese or the Japanese or the Koreans. Look at that steamship on this. I thought it might be an ocean liner because there's a whole lot of portals in the side of the ship down there below deck, and so it could very well be an ocean liner, but it's still an impressive ocean liner, and still looks like it's coal or steam driven somehow. Love these transportation vignettes. And here's the back of this note. We're moving on to a $1, strangely enough, from 1928. And this is a Central Bank of China issue, and it's overprinted Shanghai. There's Sun Yat-sen on the left. Beautiful note. Oh, this one has prefix letters and suffix letters, so you don't see that kind of treatment on banknotes very often. Here's one that has prefixes and suffix double letters, so that's kind of neat too. This is a 10 yen from 1928, although the note says 27, so yeah, 1928. So, yeah, 1928. It must have said, what did it say on this side? I'm sorry, my Chinese is poor. Oh, it said year 17, so add 11 and you have 1928 with the Shanghai overprint. Pretty nice. Have you noticed they didn't really care where the face was? Some of it's on the left, some of it's on the right, some of it's right up the middle. This is a 10 yen from 1928. Same series. And the difference is no serial numbers on the back. Serial numbers on the back, no serial numbers on the back. I think as the money became worthless, they stopped putting serial numbers on them. All right, this is a 5 yen from 1930, and there are no suffixes on the serial numbers on this note. But take a look at the color and the design of the lathe work on the front of this note. Isn't that? It's just ornate and beautiful, if you ask me. And another Shanghai overprint. This one has serials on the back and bank seals on the back as well. No bank seals on the front, just bank seals on the back. Here we go with another 5 yuan from 1936. And we have fractional suffixes. And then over here we have the Confucian family cemetery halls, place where he is honored to this day. Confucius, home of Kung Fu, home of, the thought that is still the basis for Korean society. There's a lot of safety in its rules, but it could also be very dogmatic. In some ways, like Judaism of the Old Testament could sometimes come across really dogmatic. Rules for the sake of rules and such. But all with very good reasons behind them, but sometimes hard for a later generation to find a value in them. Here we have a prefix X and a fractional suffix. Bank seals on the front of this 10 yen. And there you go. Confucius's home. Here's a 5 yen of 1936. This time the fractional is the prefix and the letter is the suffix. Isn't that cute how they toss that up like that? And then boom, a pavilion of sort. That kind of makes me think of the Kyunghae-ru that you sometimes see on Korean banknotes. Here's a 10 yen from 1936. That blue's a little more slate gray. This is a 10 cent from 1940. And these are consecutive. I was able to get them consecutive, so I have a little slew of them there. By no means are they UNC, AU at the best. But one of them may be an XF, but it's still neat to find them all sequentially numbered. I will always like sequentially numbered banknotes. Here's another unusual denomination. You saw a 25 yuan. Here is a 2 yuan. I didn't even know they made these, and then I found one, and I was like, whoa, okay, so here it is from 1941. There's Sun Yat-sen, and here is an ornately designed back. And I'm sorry I'm going through these quick. I hope you're freezing the screen if you want to see it. Now here on this 21 from 1941, you can see that the bank seals are done in a color other than red, which for me is very unusual because even in Korea and even in Japan, who both have a culture that, while unique from modern China, was still derived significantly from older times of China. And so using a chop or a seal on their banknotes, you always find them in red, so it's unusual for me to see these in a blue or a black. I don't really know what to think of it. It's on a red note, so maybe they did it to contrast it. Red note with a brown back. Here's another 21. This one has red seals, so I don't even know what the deal was. This is a 240A, or this is a B. This is the same design, but it's just different color bank seals. Do you see that? So lots of neat varieties available. So every time you see Chinese notes in a dealer's box, you ought to not just groan and move on. You might be moving right past $1,000 bill and you don't even know it. Okay, these are some 10 or some 100 yuans from 1941, and you may notice the serial number on this, and this is why I liked it. 055055. Kind of neat. And then rather more simpler back. And while it is a fractional prefix, there's no dividing line between the H and the W, so that's another way. And this is a security banknote company feature. Okay, we're going to move on to a 10 yen of 1942. And this one just has a cooler vibe to me, maybe because of the blue-gray and the violet colors that you see on the note. I think this one's just pretty. And on this side, you see a bugler in the military at the Great Wall of China. I would love to know what song he's singing. Does anybody have an idea what Chinese buglers used to play whenever they had to play? I'd be curious to know, and I have no way of finding that out. This is 100 yen from 1942, and it's all in red. People who collect red notes would love this note. Bank seals are in red. A beautiful Asian gate with clouds in the sky behind and trees. It's a lovely note. And a back that you would never dream would go with the front. I definitely think that this note had a front and a back that weren't married real well. But it is what it is. We're going to stick with the 100 yen. This one's from 1942. And a simpler Chinese character for 100. Red seals. Looks like there's an overprint of some sort, but I don't read those little tiny characters very well. The closer we get to 1945 and 46, the cheaper the notes get, the higher value they get, the quality lessens. And that's because this is about the last of the warlords of China. This is between the Imperial series and the Communist series that started coming out in the late 40s. So a lot of transition notes in terms of China. Same series. Denominations are getting higher. This is 1,000 yen from 1942. And here we have the Great Wall, but we don't have the bugler, or we don't have the guy playing the bugle. I can't believe I can't say that word. Ah, well, those of us who have a lot given to them sometimes have small things taken. Whoa, was that arrogant or what? Okay, here we have a 2,000 yen in red with the green lathe work. Beautiful note. I like the beach scene, although I'm sure that's an important building. I couldn't tell you what it is right now. If I ever do a focus video, I will definitely have the name of that building for you. Although I would hope some of my fans wouldn't mind telling us in the comments what this is. Here's a tiny 51 from 1945. Another thing that happened when the notes got cheaper was they became smaller as well. Just as red, but sometimes smaller. And now we only have one serial number on the note. Here's a 200 yuan from the same period. The lathe work is still nice. They still treated Sun Yat-sen with some respect here on the front. Red seals, 2 serials. A similar back in that they had little tiny script over there added to it as well. You have to remember that in this time period, the main counterfeiting device would have been the engraving, the lathe work, as well as fibers or planchettes that would be embedded in the paper, and paper quality had something to do with it as well. This is 1,000 yuan from 1945. You have serial number, you have bank numbers, and then you also have a printed series number, so they may have been trying to recycle numbers as much as they could without having to change dials. And I could be completely wrong. I mean, hey, I just got this assortment of notes, and I'm going to be learning a lot from this assortment for probably the rest of my life. Here we go, Sun Yat-sen in the middle of the note. You can see right there it says 34 years, so that means this is a 1940, 34, so that means this is a 1945 note. Some stainings on the ends. Don't really take away from the design for me, but some of these little stains, sometimes you look and they're uniform circles because those are planchettes that are embedded in the paper. But if you know stuff, y'all, you can cherry pick the heck out of banknote dealers' junk boxes. And you know, the banknote dealers or the coin shop dealer is probably happy because they're sitting on boxes of this stuff that they just think is crap. And, you know, it could be sitting in somebody's collection. See the sun symbol? I don't think it's because that's Sun Yat-sen on the other side. I think that's a symbol of China at this time. All right, here we have a 10,000 yen from 1947. So we're nearing the end of the time of the warlords on the mainland, and it's around this time that they fled the mainland and moved to what was to become Taiwan. But you can still see, because of the high denomination, the print is rich and thick and the engravings are extremely ornate. There would still be a lot of intaglio on the note at this time on the front. On the back, it's a different story. It's much cheaper looking and probably a lot less intaglio, maybe a lot more lithographic. And here the look is changing a little bit. This is a 10,000 yen from 1947. And while still ornate, the shape of the cartouche that bears his portrait is different. Bigger corners. And I actually think the back looks better on this one too. It looks better engraved than the others. And now we're getting to some of their vertical print notes. This is just a 10 cents from 1930. And I'm just going to angle the note this way and show you, in a pass. I like the colors of the lathe work on the notes. The backs I found to be pretty uninspiring because they just show a bank building. But I still want you to see it. This is from the Custom Gold Unit series. And these were for trade, although they ended up serving a form and being already printed were reinvented for use in circulation. This is a 5 Customs Gold Unit. They had different lathe work on each denomination. And I'm not really good, but I said it was a custom gold unit, and if you look here, that's Mo, and that's Kum for gold, and that's O for 5, and that's yen. So if this was Korean, this would be Momo Kum O 1. And I know I confuse people because I'm sitting here reading Chinese notes but using Korean pronunciations. And Joe Bowling, if you're ever around him, reads everything in Chinese with a Japanese pronunciation. So I guess it's okay if you learned Chinese characters while you were in one country or another. Don't let anybody put you down because you're using another language, because these Chinese characters and how they're used in other countries actually show the world how educated you are. Or like some of the people in Oklahoma say, who aren't educated, but they're edumacated. I have actually been accused of not being edumacated. Can you believe that? I guess I was trifling on that particular day. Oh, look at this serial number. You'll probably like this. This is a radar note 409904. I like those too. And that's kind of a gold and violet lathe work and red bank seals. And here we have 1,000 custom gold unit. Same design, just different denominations. I like this one because it makes me think of coins. And this is a 2,000 customs gold unit. This one's colored uniquely. It's kind of like red and black, and so it kind of sticks out in your mind. And what's interesting to me is the prefix. If you look at it there, it's a combination number and letter, so it's a 3X prefix before you get to the serial number. And this is a 2,000 custom gold unit. You know, as many of these custom gold unit that I'm showing you, there's about as many that I don't have. This is a 5,000 custom gold unit. And here, surprise of all surprises, is a man who is not Sun Yat-sen. His name is Lin something. I can't remember the other Chinese character of his name, but he must have been in the government of Sun Yat-sen, because, you know, you're approaching the time where you'll see some Sun Yat-sen, you'll see some Chiang Kai-shek, and you'll see some Lin right here on this 5 yen of 1945. And a different vignette on that side. Ooh, Chiang Kai-shek makes an appearance in this series. That last note was a 5 yen. This is a 10 yen from, I think, the same series. Lovely bridge on this, and check out that water reflection. Almost looks like a photograph. Ooh, I just love those notes. Same series. This is a 50 yen from 1945. Sun Yat-sen's back at the center. A reused vignette of a building, but a different angle, so it may be a completely re-engraved vignette. And that was also an American Banknote company product. This is a series of notes I like. This is a 10 yen from 1935, and it contains some scenes here on the side. And I have one scene where there's a garden scene in a smaller denomination, and then there's that famous scene where Confucius is meeting Lao Tzu or somebody, and you know, there's a wagon getting pulled. Well, this one has some farm scene. There's some plowing back there, some hay baling, and like a farmhouse, and there's a little field. It's just a nice little bucolic note, which means things probably weren't all that great. Scenes like that are probably not going to appear on a communications bank. And if you look at the issuing bank, this is the Farmers Bank of China, and so you might see some more rural things. And sure enough, on this side you have a horse. Kind of nice. Beautiful building in the middle, and over here somebody's name. And when they got it, let's see if I can't translate it. It actually says Darindra Naut Day. So it might be like a national day, June 13th. And that was a Thomas Delarue note. So this note is a 1 yen from 1941. It's another Farmer's Bank. Not really clear what the vignette in the middle is, but there's some rams or goats there on the right-hand side. I like to think of them as sheep because they look like they have wool from here. And having raised sheep and goats as a youth, I want to go with my sheep diagnosis. Here's a 5 yen from 1941, and it's another Farmer's Bank. And y'all look, even though the note's dirty, this is sometimes the only way you can get your nice little cows for your cow notes. Isn't that great? Love me some cow notes. Okay, this is at 100 yen, and it is a Farmer's Bank as well, but there's no animals on it, but there is some amazing vignettes. Take a look at that central vignette. You have a bridge, you have a building with steps leading down to a river's edge, and you have boats. Very well engraved, and showing a picture that you would never see here in the United States. And here on the back, there's a full circle or a moon bridge. I mean, I'm used to seeing full circle moon gates, so I would imagine this kind of bridge has a very special name, but it's a very beautiful note. We're moving to 1949 with this next note, and I don't even know what bank it is, but it's very industrial. And because of the Roman numerals there, you know that this is an issue of the Chinese Communist government. And sure enough, when you look up here, you say Chungu Kinmin Unhang. So that means China People's Bank. And that is an industrial scene. And it looks like a huge something they're using to pour probably iron. They're probably smelting iron. And if you look in the background, there's a little tiny person. So that gives you an idea of how much metal is in that container. Beautiful blue galoshes, red seals for the banks. And here on the back, a much more simple design. Whew, I've hit the 30-minute mark. Let's see if I can speed this out. This is a 5,000 yen from 1949. So again, Chinese communist issue. Tractor pulling a plow or a disc. Very beautiful. And in this series, they still use a lot of lathe work for design. Some damage on the edge. I'm going to have to use a toothpick and tease that out, and hopefully it'll flatten out in this holder now that it's being treated well. And I have to tell y'all, this would probably be an expensive note if somebody hadn't helped us out by using an ink pen to write out Chinese there. We have an industrial scene, manufacturing scene, and we have a farm scene over there. Very well engraved, and we're still just simple with the graphics on the back. That stain doesn't even take away from it, if you ask me. We're sticking with communist China at this point. We're looking at a 10,000 yen from 1949. You have horses here, oxen in the background. Thank you for your help, Mister, writing that down in Chinese and probably taking off 50% of the value. I like this one because there's a guy, there is a cow, and there is a sheep, and they're all taking it easy in the shade of a tree, which is how I prefer to take it. Another helpful Chinese designation on a 10,000 yen of some sort of ship. I don't know if it's just a battleship or if it's just a steamship, or maybe somebody can help, but this is dynamic in design and beautiful, and it ranks right up there with the Battleship United States note and that fantastic battleship note that you find from Germany from their World War I issues. Isn't that gorgeous? And then, of course, just lathe work on the back. We're looking at another vertical 10 yen, Sun Yat-sen again. This is a 1949 note, so it's a different government. Actually, this is a 38, so yeah. So this would be a 1949 note. And this would be when the warlords moved to Taiwan. And sure enough, if you look here, this is a Bank of Taiwan issue. And underneath the denomination is an outline of the island of Taiwan. I've been there, and it's like Chinese in miniature. It was a great trip. Look at the lathe work on this note. This is a 10 yen from 1954. And it's also a Bank of Taiwan issue. There's a street scene. There's people on bicycles. That could be a street scene in any U.S. big city. It's very nice. Very nice. Here's a red 5 yen. And it is from 1956. So Taiwan is established. There is communism on the mainland and separate money systems at this point. And sure enough, this is a somewhat current 100 yen or 100 new Taiwan dollar from the year 2000. And I believe that's Sun Yat-sen to the right. And maybe his house or his mausoleum on the back. You know, it's kind of weird. I think the mainland Chinese and the island of Taiwan both revere Sun Yat-sen because at a certain point in his history, he helped China get away from the imperialist system, which both of those governments didn't care for. We're going to go to a 50 yen from 1942, and this is a third version of a train. I'm sure there's many other versions, but this is the third one that I have. I didn't find this note on Numista, so I still don't know what it is. It's a 50 yen from 1942, and I might need some help in it. Bank seals. It's a bank of communication. You think it wouldn't be hard to find any information, but with the hundreds, if not thousands, of paper issues of China, it's not surprising that there would be one that would give me some problems. All right, we're going to go back to some custom gold units. This is a 50. And the reason these were out of order somewhat is because these notes are so oversized that I had to use big holders. And so I like to segregate my holders by size of holders. So give me a break, y'all. Okay, we have a 20 custom gold unit in green. And here we have a 678977 or a 679877. So it's kind of a nice serial number. I always wanted to get my zip code as a serial number or my address or my birth date, and I'm going to keep my eyes open to do that. Here we have an olive green 10 custom gold unit. Love those galoshes. And y'all, sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone if you want to collect by vignette or if you want to collect by lathe work, because some of the prettiest lathe work are going to be on some of the cheapest notes. So if you have standards, you might just be denying yourself something fun to collect. This is a 500 yen from 1944. Love the red of it. I have a friend in Great Britain who used to be in Hong Kong. I know he would love this note. And if I find another one, I might save it for him. Isn't that gorgeous? Another 50 yen from 1941. Pretty nice. And here's where we get some colorful and crazy stuff going on. Look at that. Look at that color. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh! Oh my gosh, and I wish the U.S. was something different. And this note is the only torn note I really have in my collection. And ignore this label up there, because this is just a recycled holder. But this is a national currency. And look at those combinations of colors. Yellows, blues, purples, greens. That is just a gorgeous, gorgeous note. And here we have another note. And I didn't even put this in my collection as a catalog number because for some reason. This has a frame down here that makes me think of some of those Vietnamese notes. And then an awkward stain there makes it look like he's wearing a clown nose. But when you turn this note over, you have a beautiful red and blue note. And somebody wrote in the window, and it says, "To Mr. Paul, kindest regards, Jack Yerby, Chungking, February 1945." And so I went onto Facebook, and I found a Yerby on Facebook, and as I was Facebook stalking him and reading the profile, they had a family member in China in this time period. And so I wrote him and I said, "Are you perhaps kin to a Jack Yerby?" But of course, he hasn't graced me with the response yet. But if he does, it might be neat if I can get this note back to him. And here's the same note without the writing. I tell you, I sometimes love these notes with the writings. Somewhere around here, I even have one of these Chinese notes where somebody blotted it with their lipstick. I mean, it's like they put on lipstick and then used the banknote to blot their lips. Or they kissed it goodbye and gave it to a lover. I don't know. It just warms my heart. Look at that lathe work. This is $100 from 1928. Here's a 50. And somebody thought enough of themselves to memorialize themselves in handwriting on this note. If you can read Chinese, can you please tell me the name? Because that's handwriting. And while I can read some Chinese characters, it's hard for me to read some English handwriting. Here's one of my favorite engraved notes. It's red, but it has blue and green galoshes, overprint. Love the design. People looking at you. There's an electric streetcar. And that's my desire, to know a little bit more about that streetcar. I'm sorry. I hope you got my joke. Okay, so there's a steamship, there's a train, there's a horse-drawn wagon, and there's barrels. So I guess they're promoting drinking and driving. Maybe not. I got to get this going, guys. I've hit the 39-minute mark. Okay, this is 100 yen. Here's a 50 yen. Blues and browns. with the Temple of Heaven. And here is a Japanese 100 yen that was in there, but of course, I forgive anybody who thinks that these are Chinese, although with a little bit of effort, you can tell it's Japanese because of the chrysanthemum emblem and the fact that the Japanese like to have flower emblems. So sometimes it's not a chrysanthemum, sometimes it's a plum blossom, which means anyone, Korea, or a hibiscus, which also means Korea. Here's the China 500 yuan. There's another version of the Temple of Heaven. Less ornate back. Here's Chiang Kai-shek on a, Sun Yat-sen on a 500 yuan. Really, really ornately engraved. And the final note that I'm sharing with you at the 40-minute mark is a 100 yuan in greens, yellows, and tans. What'd you think, guys? Did I make out okay? I think I did. I don't have a lot of money in this, but I have more than 80 new types for my collection. So this really helped me out. And I would encourage you guys to make friends with your local coin dealer and see what they have. You might be surprised, and they might be happy to get rid of some stuff. I'd encourage you to get some accumulations and just see how you can make them work together. My name is Benjamin. This is Numismatic Notes with Benjamin. Have a jewel of a day.